There are moments in the long life of an institution when it seems to implode from within rather than collapse from outside attack, and the BBC this week has reached precisely that moment. Tim Davie, who once styled himself as the saviour of public broadcasting, now leaves as its chief gravedigger. For all the criticism hurled at the BBC by Nadine Dorries, the right-wing press, or Donald Trump, nothing has so effectively weakened it as Davie's own leadership. What began as a single error of judgment in the editing suite of Panorama has become a constitutional crisis for the corporation. The facts are grimly familiar. In October 2024, just before the US presidential election, Panorama broadcast a documentary that edited Donald Trump's January the 6th speech, splicing two different moments together in a way that made it appear he urged his followers to fight like hell at the Capitol. The omitted phrase, "peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard," is precisely the line that his defenders have brandished ever since. Now, Trump has scented blood. Through his lawyers, he's demanded $1 billion in damages, accusing the BBC of deliberate defamation and electoral interference. It's the legal threat wrapped in political theatre, yet it lands at the most vulnerable moment imaginable. Davie and Deborah Turness, head of the BBC News, both resigned at the same time. The chairman, Samir Shah, has been left to issue a belated apology, an error of judgment, he wrote, while insisting there was no systemic bias. It's an attempt at damage control that convinces nobody. Because the real crisis here is not about one misleading edit, it's about a culture of timidity and overmanagement that has hollowed out the BBC's editorial authority. When the BBC panics, it grovels. When it should defend its journalism, it dithers. When it should admit error swiftly, it delays until contrition looks like capitulation. And all the while its enemies circle, crowing that the licence fee must go up or be abolished. Nigel Farage could hardly conceal his delight, for example. In his latest broadcast, he cited the resignation as proof that the BBC has been institutionally biased for decades. He repeated this call for the licence fee to be scrapped and replaced by a subscription model. "We need a slimmed-down BBC," he said, competing like everyone else in the market, even Nadine Dorries, who he references. Once his nemesis inside the Conservative Party, now a Reform UK member, agrees with him. It's an extraordinary coalition. Trump's legal fury in Florida, and Farage said he spoke to him the other day. Farage's populist assault in Westminster, united against the same target, with Nadine Dorries waving the flag. Farage's argument is superficially seductive. The modern world, he says, pays by subscription. Netflix and Disney Plus thrive, so why not the BBC? The answer is that the BBC was never meant to be a consumer product. It is not entertainment on demand. It is a civic institution designed to serve those who cannot or would not pay a commercial subscription. Now, once you turn it into a marketplace commodity, you concede that truth itself has a price tag. And yet, Davie has made the BBC vulnerable to precisely that logic. He presided over a confused hybrid, half public service, half commercial brand. He courted global advertisers while preaching impartiality. He pandered to celebrity while silencing serious reporting that might offend the powerful. He inherited a public trust and managed it like a marketing agency. Now Samir Shah's apology feels less like leadership and more like triage. His letter to Caroline Dinenage promises to strengthen oversight of electoral compliance and revisit every complaint, but oversight is not the same as vision. What the BBC needs is conviction, the courage to admit mistakes without surrendering its mission. There is too an international dimension. Trump's rhetoric, calling the BBC journalists corrupt and dishonest, is not just bombast, it is part of a wider attempt to discredit independent journalism globally. If Britain's public broadcaster folds under legal or political pressure, it will embolden every autocrat who dreams of silencing critical media under the guise of bias. Downing Street, to its credit, has offered some support. The Prime Minister's spokesman said that the BBC is not corrupt and remains vital in an age of disinformation. But that endorsement sounds half-hearted, more a bureaucratic reflex than a defence of principle. and the timing could not be worse. The BBC faces its next charter renewal before 2027, precisely when it will need government goodwill to secure its funding model. So what remains? A wounded broadcaster, a departing Director-General, a chair trying to steady the ship, and an army of critics demanding that scuttling of the vessel altogether is the way to go. The spectacle is painful because it's avoidable. Had Davy acted quickly, acknowledged the Panorama editor error, and reasserted the BBC's standards, he might have survived. The BBC might have survived. Instead, delay has become dereliction of duty, and the world's most respected broadcaster has turned into a punchline for Trump rallies and Reform UK press conferences. What a complete pillock Tim Davie has been. Farage's call for a subscriber BBC might yet prove prophetic, not because it's right, but because the BBC's own leadership has made the old model indefensible. The irony is tragedy. Those who wanted to destroy the corporation may not need to lift a finger, for its collapse has been engineered, like the fall of Rome, from within. The BBC, as Davie wrote in his resignation letter, should be championed, not weaponized. He's correct. But he leaves behind an organisation that has done both, clumsily and at great cost. The unraveling is almost complete. What remains is the question of whether the next Director-General will rebuild a public institution or preside over its final privatization.